All right, please be seated. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to another Peaceful Solution Character Education Teacher Certification course class. I see we got a lot of people in the auditorium today, and there's probably a lot of you online there that are tuning in. Just to make a quick announcement, we will be having our next class on 2/2/2025. That's on Sunday evening on 2/2/2025 at 5:30 p.m. Look forward to seeing everybody here again. Tune in if you're out there in TV land. So we are in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Building Moral Excellence unit. This is like building up from everything we've done so far, and we come to this point. And it has it all condensed in here in a little bit more mature statements, a little bit more mature lessons, you know. And though we do refer back to the elementary and the mid grades, if you will, on the basics of understanding of the Peaceful Solution. So we've been in chapter 4, and we're going to continue on there. But let's go back and review where we're at. If you'll turn to Lesson Plan 4, page F. Lesson Plan 4, page F. On Lesson Plan 4, page F, we went over procedure number 5, and we talked about the skills of leadership. And these skills of leadership, it continues on. It's not just, 1 or 2 pages. In fact, it starts on 158 and continues on 159 and 160 and 161, 162, and then it summarizes in 163. So it's a continuation, even though the other pages are not listed in there. And number 6 was an activity, not just words. And it says the following activity will enable students to appreciate the importance of effective communication. Now, interestingly enough, the activities that are listed in here are really great, especially if you're in a situation where you've got, a close-knit classroom where you can do some of the skits, some of the activities, include everybody in it. Now, what we did last class was very similar to this activity, and we changed our tone of voice, our facial expressions, the hand gestures, everything else, in showing how important it is to consider everything in communication, not just the words that are coming out of someone's mouth. In fact, I believe we found out, if everybody remembers, that what comes out of the mouth is only about 7% of the actual communication taking place. You remember that? Yeah. So body language, tone of voice, facial expressions, all these things are big time in communication and really affect what's going on in your ability to listen, actively listen. Okay, so we talked about what makes a leader in a couple of the classes leading up to this. We talked about if we could be a leader. One of the things I had marked, I think Chris went over this particular lesson, but on page 154, can you be a leader? One of the things that I have highlighted here that really stands out to me is keep in mind that what you were learning in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program can be used throughout your life, in every aspect of your life, no matter what career you choose. So we use the Peaceful Solution in all aspects of our life, every day of our life, every minute of our life. We use it in dealing with our family members. We use it in dealing with people we work with. We use it in dealing with people that we run into in the supermarket or what have you. We use the Peaceful Solution. We use it when we're dealing with our animals, if we have pets or livestock or something. We use it even when we're dealing with our possessions, like our cars or our computer or whatever. We learn to take care of our things and show respect all the way around. When we take care of our own things, we're showing respect to ourselves and others that might be using the items too, or who might receive the items later on. So keep all this in mind and understand that everything, well, let me read this next paragraph. It says, whether you are aware of it or not, you have probably been given opportunities to lead without realizing it. Okay, I'm going to read that again. Whether you are aware of it or not, you have probably been given opportunities to lead without even realizing it. Now, a person who has negativity in their mind, a person who's, lazy, a person who doesn't really care about what's going on, they're just trying to make it through the day. Hey, I'm gonna put my 8 hours in, I'm going home, man, you forget about me. The person that does that, they might be given an opportunity to see if they can become a leader, and they wouldn't even know it because their mind isn't open to it. One of the things that those that I know that are leaders in the Peaceful Solution, not only in the Peaceful Solution, but in businesses that are successful and all, I noticed that before they were in a leadership position, the leaders, before they were in a leadership position, their mind was open to recognizing opportunities. Opportunities being that might come to you in the way you wouldn't consider it being an opportunity. You get a call at 10 o'clock at night and someone's broken down on the side of the road and they need help, and you know these people and you know what's going on. You have access to be able to help them or know someone who can. Instead of just rolling over and going to sleep or whatever, you get on the phone and try to get them some help if you're not able to do it yourself. And instead of being bothered by the phone call, you look for those opportunities. Your neighbor might have some trees, some fruit trees, and you hear of a frost coming, and he needs some help in getting those trees covered up. Well, you look out the window and you see him, oh man, I'm glad I'm not out there doing that. But on the other hand, if you thought, wow, I wonder if they need some help, and you can go out there and help out for whatever time period you can. Their animals get loose. You could go and help round up their animals. I mean, even a little bit of time that you could be out there. I know myself, if I get out there and it's cold and moist and windy and everything, I might not be able to stay out there as long as I could when I was, 30 years ago or something, right? So you look at these things as opportunities, though, and without even realizing it, whether someone's watching or not, you are actually showing that you have that leadership capability. You're showing that you have care and concern and respect for your neighbor. Got it? So always remember that. Without even realizing it, no one's going to come up and say, by the way, I'm going to be throwing some stuff at you today to see if you're capable of being a leader. That's not going to go down that way. It'd be too easy. But a person with the wrong frame of mind probably wouldn't make it anyway. So anyways, leaders are people who have the courage to take on responsibilities, complete tasks, encourage and organize others to work along with them. Okay, so let's get on back to where we were there. The skills of leadership. We started out on page 158, and we talked about a leader communicating effectively. And we use the word leader. We're all leaders if we're doing the right thing and we're showing other people the right thing to do, especially by our actions. Now, you can preach a lot of stuff to somebody. I've heard many people, in fact, just taking the Peaceful Solution, for instance, I know some people that were not practicing anything to do with the Peaceful Solution, but yet they were able to memorize several pages and where everything was at in the book, and would come up and ask me things like, hey, you remember on page 59 of the Building Moral Excellence where it says blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, no, I don't. No, I'm sorry. I can go look at it. Or what is it you're trying to ask me? They weren't trying to ask me anything. They just wanted to see if, I memorized something like they memorized it. It had nothing to do with the Peaceful Solution. If he would have asked a question like, well, I remember it was talking about respect and blah, blah, and I would say, oh, yeah, no, I remember that. In fact, what it says is bum, bum, bum. Don't have a clue what page it's on in most cases. Some of it I do, but, the important thing is learning the peaceful solution, not learning the letters in the book. Yes, that's part of it. You have to learn what it says, don't get me wrong. And we have the book in front of us so we can learn. We're being taught by the information that the author has given us to learn, right? But you put it to work in your life, and that's how the peaceful solution, that's how it works, and that's how you know it, and that's how you become a leader too. So in communicating effectively, one of the things is remembering our tone of voice. We talked about that too, our tone of voice when we're talking to somebody. You can tell immediately if a person has a little bit of a firm tone in their voice, okay? You can also tell if they're starting to get a little bit agitated, right? You can also tell when it's gone way beyond and out of control, when the person is in a fit of rage, yelling and jumping around and calling names, and like you're sitting back there wondering, man, what's wrong with dude there? So keeping that in mind, a tone of voice on how you deal with people. And then the facial expressions. We saw how important that was last class, and that, you ask them what's wrong, or is anything wrong, and they look at you and say, no, nothing's wrong. Okay, well, yeah, we know something's wrong. It doesn't matter about the words coming out of the mouth, right? And then body language. Every aspect of body language, learning how to decipher, learning how to understand what's being said from a person. That body language, which includes, yes, their face, their head, their shoulders, their arms, their hands, their legs, the way their feet are pointed, how they're standing. Are they hunched? Are they standing up straight? Are they leaning forward? I mean, there's so much. In fact, if you started studying body language, you would take on something that would probably take you a very long time to learn, and you would need to watch a lot of different people to really get the idea on how well it works. But all of these things are tools. They're just tools that can be used to understand people and for you to help people understand, okay? And where we left off, we were talking about actively listens. A leader actively listens. He's learned to put his own feelings and his own wants and desires aside when needing to listen, when listening to someone's concerns, say a worker or a neighbor or a family member, somebody, they've got a concern and they want to talk to you. And if you, instead of pushing them aside, and I think we're all guilty of it. I mean, I know I have been many times, but, busy on something and someone says something, oh yeah, okay. Did you really hear? Did you really hear what they said? I mean, you might have heard a couple words and thought, oh, they're talking about that again, and they should continue on what you're doing. And it might be something really important to them, You can't just, because you're the boss, so to speak, you can't just throw everything aside that a person's saying. Now, if they're telling jokes and starting to communicate in ways that has nothing to do with what's the business at hand, you might stop and let them know, hey, I really need to focus on this for just a minute. Hang on, and we'll get to that. Or change the subject. This is a conversation. You can always change the subject back to the situation at hand. That comes in handy also when you're teaching a class and someone raises their hand and just goes way out into left field. You could be teaching a class on actively listening, and someone raises their hand and say, this peaceful solution, I tried this about a month ago and it didn't do nothing for me, and I don't even know what, it has nothing to do with what's taking place at hand, other than you might want to say to the person, we can get together after class and I can listen to what you've got to say and maybe we can come to a conclusion, instead of like throwing everything off. So part of it is learning what's really being said. And in fact, halfway down the page, on page 160 on actively listening, there's a bullet point, or arrow, that says de-escalation of arguments. So de-escalating arguments, that's one of the things that the peaceful solution gives you, that you develop over time when you're learning every aspect of the peaceful solution. You could be a great mediator when it comes to arguments and things of that sort. So, in fact, let's see, the first paragraph there on one's under actively listening, the third paragraph, okay. Positive, effective leaders learn how to incorporate all of this into the way they communicate and listen. Active listening is a powerful tool that can be utilized in the following situations. Okay, so de-escalation of arguments, we talked about that. Imparting understanding and acceptance. So have you ever had a situation where you had a teacher or a boss, authority figure of some type that says, "Hey, I want you to go get that saw over there and cut that board." And they turn around, walk off, and you're standing there like, "Well, wait a minute. Okay, what board was he talking about? Wonder what board? Which saw was he talking about? There's 5 of them over there. They're all different. Shoot, when does this need to be done by? What size does it need to be?" Okay, so there's things that are missing in that broad statement of go cut that board, right? So if you're actively listening and actively communicating, you're going to impart that knowledge so the person can understand what it is that you're looking for them to do or to help you with and so forth. And that applies in everything, not just cutting a board. Gaining insight and knowledge of an individual or situation. So this actively listening, if you're able to be patient and keep your thoughts to yourself for a minute and let the other person finish getting their point across, if you will, it can help you to gain some insight into what's going on with them. And it might help you to know what questions to really ask when you get to that point of a break where you can ask them things. Because remember, this is all about sharing information. Giving and getting information is what actively listening is. It's not just sitting there listening like this and never saying anything. It's when the time is right, you say something. Timing is everything. Well, attitude is everything. Timing is the next thing, okay? Keep that in mind. Timing is very, very, very important. Anyway, moving on. Here are a few simple rules to help you to learn to actively listen. Have the right attitude about listening. How about that? Attitude. Be just as willing to listen as to give advice or instructions. And then encourage others to talk by using door openers. We talked a little bit about that last class, I think, the door openers. Phrases such as, "Well, it sounds as if," or it looks as if there's been a problem, or it looks as if you've had a situation before, or it looks as if possibly we haven't worked on this enough, And the "we" thing helps a lot, but it looks as if. It shows that you want the speaker to continue talking and that you are trying to understand his point of view. You're not shutting him off and closing the door by giving a blanket statement. "Well, what you need to do is just go about your business. What you need to do is just tell them this. What you need to do is just this," You're actually talking it out and helping them to learn how to think in the proper manner also. You're helping them to have a positive mental attitude. You're helping them to learn the importance of how to actively listen and communicate, because once they see that it's working, that what you're doing is helping with the situation and it's working for everyone around, once they see that, then they'll want to be that way too. They'll want to be able to do the same thing. It's actually a power. It's having the knowledge and the wisdom and understanding on knowing how to use all this, and it is a power. All right, so number 3, don't interrupt the speaker or change the subject. Boy, that's a hard one right there, and I recall, I think earlier in the week, I did that very thing. Probably not just one time either. It really is a tough thing to get to that point of never interrupting somebody. Of course, unless there's an emergency. I mean, they're standing there and a fire is raging behind them, or they're fixing to get run over by a truck. Do you interrupt them? Oh, I remember it said don't interrupt the speaker. I better not. No, come on. You have to have some common sense to use along with all that too. Remember, you're supposed to help the other person. You're supposed to watch out for them. You're supposed to guard against these hazards and everything, right? So you would want to interrupt in that point. But don't interrupt the speaker or change the subject. So I mentioned changing the subject a minute ago. Like if things are out of hand, it's going the wrong way, they're not trying to actively communicate in any manner, and it's going to have an effect on your ability to actively listen. If it's all they're wanting to do is just, yell and scream and all that, you might try to change the whole aspect, the whole environment a little bit. Consider how you would feel if you really had something important to share with someone and they interrupted and changed the subject while you were speaking, okay? That's really right there. That's a kind of a tough one. You got to work with that and understand where that point is. Number 4, reflect what the speaker might be feeling. A reflective response conveys understanding and concern for what the speaker is saying. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of times, all the time you'll want to have empathy to what a person is talking about, what they're speaking about, what they're feeling, and so forth. You want to have empathy. Empathy is just, it's trying to get the understanding of where they're coming from. What have they been through? What has led them to do this kind of thing? If you tell a person to that works for you and they need to do what you're saying, and you're on a project somewhere, and you say, hey, hand me that board right over there, that 3-foot board. And they look over there and they see it and they're like, and they kind of lock up and they don't go get it, and they walk away or whatever. And you're wondering, what is wrong with that guy? You start yelling at him or something. Did you consider what went on in his life? Maybe that person has a block in their mind because that 3-foot board is the very kind of board that somebody used to beat him with as a child or something, and it just fit the bill. They saw it, it hit their subconscious mind, and they just locked down, I mean, we don't know what's going on with people. We really need to know what's going on with people. We need to know why they get in those positions. We need to know why they lock up and do things like that. I mean, it's not a natural, it's not a proper response, but it's not a normal response either. So being able to actively listen also involves being empathetic towards people too. Not sympathetic necessarily. Sympathetic is when you agree with what's going on. Sympathetic is when you join in with whatever's going on. Oh yeah, man, that's right, I agree. That's being sympathetic to the cause. We want to be empathetic, not necessarily sympathetic. Anyway, so a reflective response conveys understanding and concern for what the speaker is feeling. For instance, someone says, I'm never going to get all this work done. Is that a positive or negative? Is that an optimistic or pessimistic outlook? But I'm never going to get all this work done. A reflective response would be, oh, it sounds like you might be a little overwhelmed with all the work you have to do. And then you could go on and say, hey, why don't I help you? Or do you need some help? Or can we do it this way? Or whatever. And you kind of, start a conversation, see if we can solve the situation. That's what you're trying to do as a peaceful solution student, a peaceful solution teacher. What you want to do is solve problems, not cause problems. Solve problems, not just say what they are and lay it on everybody and throw it on them and, yell at them and get everybody upset about something, or everybody, if they're going to get upset, that's their own choice. But if you put stuff out there, you're the one lighting that fire under them, you're the one pulling that trigger and firing things up a little bit. You want to be the peacemaker. You want to be the one looking for the solution, okay? Everyone knows a lot about what the problem is already, or at least the symptom of what's taking place, They might not know exactly where it's coming from. But so anyway, Listening is a valuable skill that will only enhance your ability to lead. Now, I meant to, back over here on the other page, I meant to stop for a minute and go through this. I highlighted something here. Exploring disrespect in society. This is out of the respect manual. And so being a leader, okay, and actively communicating and actively listening involves respect. You've got to have respect. Sadly, disrespectful behavior has become commonplace in our society. Whether you witness this behavior, and that's why I marked this, whether you witness this behavior on television, at the movies, at school, at the mall, whatever, it is no longer surprising to see people dressed inappropriately. It's an everyday thing. Disrespecting authority figures, commercials on TV, movies that show people disrespecting one another. You could go on and on and on. Being rude. Being rude is not a great thing. I mean, some people say, well, that's just my personality. Well, yeah, it's your personality, all right, but it's also hurting people. Well, they need to learn to get over it. Okay, well, if that's how you really feel, are you really trying to be an active listener and communicate effectively with people? No. If you're rude to people all the time, you are not going to communicate effectively with them. They're not going to be concerned at all about communicating with you. They don't care at all about what you care about until they know how much you care. Anyway, there's a couple sayings that go along with that, and then another thing, and this is all about influences too. Another thing that occurs with, and it doesn't matter if you're in a business supervisory position or if you're some governmental authority or whatever the deal is, people dealing every day together, man to man, woman to woman, etc. But this one here, respect bridges the gap between cultures. So in dealing with listening to people, if I'm sitting down with you and you are from a different culture, in fact, I've dealt with this before in where I'm talking on the phone with somebody and we're discussing a situation, and I was thinking, what in the world is he talking about? And it came to find out he was on the other end of the line thinking, what in the world is he talking about? Because we were from different cultures. What he was saying was totally and completely peaceful and true to him, and what I was saying was totally and completely peaceful and true to me, and the right way to do it. But neither one of us understood completely because we were from vastly different backgrounds. Well, you need to take this into consideration when you're dealing with people too. Remember, actively listening, being able to communicate effectively. How are you going to communicate effectively if you don't care where the other person came from, what the other person has been through, what their life is like, what's going on? So respect bridges the gap between cultures. I'm going to read this. In some instances, something considered respectful in one culture might be disrespectful in others. By the way, this is page 91 in the respect manual for those that you want to make a note or something. And by the way, for those of you online, remember, all you have to do is go to the official Peaceful Solution Facebook or peacefulsolution.org or a few other sites, and you can get you can also download the books. It'll be on a drop-down menu, and you can download what we're working in tonight, the Building Moral Excellence, or any of the previous books that we've been through, and then any of the books that we continue to go through. They'll be available too, including the Respect Manual, which I'm talking about right now, which is page 91. Disrespect is a lack of care, a lack of concern, and courteous regard for others or their possessions. And for example, did you know that in some cultures, belching aloud after you eat is not only respectful, but also polite? It tells the cook that you enjoyed the food. In other cultures, belching aloud, especially in the presence of others, is considered disrespectful, rude, and crude. And I'm sorry if I was disrespectful at all and kind of chuckling about this for any of you, like out here in the auditorium or even online, that might be from a culture where it is considered very polite to, let out a big old belch, after eating something or drinking something, So although there are some differences as to what is considered respectful and polite from one culture to the next, there are universal behaviors that bridge the gap between cultures. Universal behaviors. If I go and break your window and you're from Japan, I think that it would be the same as if the person from Japan came and broke my window. Or if you're from South Africa or Cuba or Russia, wherever, and you break my window or steal my lawnmower, and I think it would be the same response as if I came and broke your window and stole your lawnmower. We have a universal agreement right there that we don't want that done to us, okay? So there's a lot of things that we do have in common, a lot, and that's what we're looking to. The peaceful solution seeks out those things and helps us to understand those things that we have in common rather than the things that we might differ on a little bit, and it brings us together into a type of unity, if you will. So, okay, and then I wanted to continue on that line a little bit because we're talking about effective communication and active listening. So, continuing on in the respect manual, on page 56 is the language of respect. And this talks about respectful communication. In fact, I'm going to read this. Have you ever heard the expression, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me? Well, guess what? It's a lie. Words can hurt, though we just talked about words being about 7%, but not in every situation. Okay, you can't just take everything and mark it. Oh no, those words shouldn't matter that much to you. It's only 7%. No. Hey, it might be that you're a young child and the words that come out of my mouth will stick with you the rest of your life, where possibly even my body language or something and you didn't even remember. Maybe I was on the phone and spoke to you very harshly and was criticizing you and said something to you, and it stayed with you the rest of your life. Has that ever occurred to anybody here? Can you think of a time in your past where somebody's words stay in your mind even today? You bet. Okay. So, thank you. And that's right. So those words mattered more than 7%, didn't they? Okay, but keep this in mind. Words can hurt. They can be a form of abuse. Bones that get broken heal, but emotional hurt from spiteful, mean, and uncaring words can have a lifelong effect. Respectful communication also involves controlling your emotions so that you can refrain from name-calling or teasing others. And people name-call and tease for different reasons. The two most common reasons are to put someone down and make them feel bad about themselves. And a lot of times that's because a person is trying to, they're manipulating right there anyway, but they're manipulating and trying to get some type of gain, some type of advantage over the person. Possibly even they're trying to get them to do their will, and they're going to break them down and make them feel useless so then they can get them to do what they want them to do. Another reason is that you might just be joking around, but keep in mind that if you're the only one who thinks your joke is funny, then your name calling and teasing is not a joke to the other person. And I've often mentioned this one scenario where I was having a cookout with some friends, and we had eaten at this person's house many times on a cookout, and the meat was always a little bit on the overdone side. And we were joking about it and called it, me and another person were joking about it and called it a burnt offering. And the person, closed the lid of the barbecue and he said, well, you can go get your burnt offering someone else then. So all this time he didn't think it was that funny, but he didn't say anything until, the lid blew off, so to speak. He had enough. It built up inside him enough. He hadn't stopped and said anything. Hey, you guys, man, I don't find that funny at all. He let it build up, and we continued on, and it was a big joke to us. But we soon learned, and we all are, still friends and all that. No big deal. But it was a big deal at the time, and I'm sure he remembers it just like I do to this very day, and so does the other person. So, and I've said that before. You guys have heard it before, I'm sure. But the problem with name calling is that it can be very disrespectful and can seriously hurt someone's feelings. Name calling chips away at another's self-respect, and it can make them feel devalued, embarrassed, and humiliated. Man, these are the things that we learn right when we're starting out in the Peaceful Solution, that we don't want to do that. We don't want to do anything that can lead a person to these feelings. Of course, a person has to control their own emotions, but you don't have to be that igniting fire, People often name call when they're upset with someone. Saying hurtful, spiteful words to show someone that you're upset with them never solves a problem. I would say even when you're in a discussion, it starts turning into a argument, and then when the tone increases, and then it gets loud, and even though you might not be calling someone a name, you're putting it across really quick that you're not concerned about them at all, and you're only concerned about yourself, your selfishness of getting your words out. And that's why you're increasing that volume level. You want to get over the other person. You want to put that other person down and get over them. And I don't care what it is you're trying to say. Really, it comes down to that. It's not respectful. Unless you're telling that person, get out of the way, there's a truck coming. You need to get a little loud. Arguing is not the way to go. Saying hurtful, spiteful words to show someone that you're upset with them never solves the problem. In fact, it only makes the situation worse. The next time you become angry with someone, remember that the person you're angry with is still a human being and therefore worthy of respect. Actually, what I've seen in the past is that people who are in a disagreement and it turns into a argument where no one's willing to look at the other person's side and think about the other person and show care and concern, and then the voices start coming up like that, it doesn't go anywhere. You're actually showing that you only want a person to hear what you've got to say, and the only way that you can do it is to get loud. You can't use your intellect to present a case and let them make a choice one way or another. You want to force the issue. And that's when that loud voices and everything comes in an argument. You're trying to force your way on someone else rather than give them the info and let them make a choice on the matter. It's all right here. An uncontrolled tongue is like deadly poison. It can kill. This is what the Peaceful Solution talks about. This is the basics of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. All right, so see the little cartoon thing right there? I call it a cartoon. I don't know, the drawing. Hey, take it easy. Don't get so uptight, man. And obviously the other guy, you can see by the exclamation there, if you open your mouth one more time, I'll be glad to close it for you. Okay, well, it's gotten out of hand at that point, hasn't it? And so that type of communication with somebody is not communicating effectively. Communicate effectively is all these things we're talking about. If you're trying to communicate your thoughts to someone else, that's not the way to do it. This is not the way to do it right here, by yelling at somebody and being louder than them so you can get your message across. Hey, I'm looking for that and I don't see it anywhere. I'm turning back to page 158 and I'm looking at, let's see, communicates effectively. Let's see, tone of voice, facial expressions, body language. I just don't see it anywhere. Must not be. Okay. So, one last thing on that. On page 57 of the Respect Manual, this page is for you. This is how you can speak the language of respect. Well, we got a little bit cut off there, but it's let the person know why you're upset. Do not assume they know why you're upset. Sometimes people say and do things unintentionally, okay? And that's true. You know, they're not always just trying to cause a problem. You can tell the person what you would like them to do or not to do and be very clear about your need. The other person cannot be respectful of your needs if they do not know what they are. It doesn't say you have to yell at them. It says tell the person that you would like them to do or not to do and be very clear about it. Take the time to listen to their side of the story. Be respectful. See that? Be respectful and listen to what they have to say. They might be trying to apologize, but you won't even hear it if you're screaming and talking over them. Man, the peaceful solution is so great. This would solve so many problems if people would just put it to work in their life. Use the proper tone of voice. This means no screaming or yelling. And you know, if you're in an authority position, if you're a supervisor, if you own the company even, you know, whatever the case, this is the way you communicate right here. I don't have a chapter in here that talks about, oh, unless you're the authority, unless you're the owner, unless you're the boss, unless you're the head of the family, unless you're, you know, it all says everywhere, communicate effectively by using respect. Use the proper tone of voice, no screaming or yelling. Refrain from cursing. Foul language is not useful, it's just foul. Avoid put downs. They only make the other person, you know, of course the other person gets upset on their own, but you can be that igniting fire, that trigger again. It only makes the other person upset and make the situation worse. Here's the bottom line about the whole thing. I want you to look at that right there. See what that says right there? It says, respect others the way you would like to be respected. Is this not the whole thing of the peaceful solution? Is that not what we've been learning all along? If you are a teacher of the peaceful solution or learning to be a teacher of the peaceful solution or a student of the peaceful solution, and people know that you are, and they see you doing something like we're talking about right here, not communicating effectively, just know that you're teaching all right, but you're teaching the wrong thing. And we're not perfect, don't get me wrong about that. I don't know anybody in this room sitting here in this auditorium that's perfect, including myself. I don't know anybody of you, of course, most of you online I haven't met or talked to, some of you I have, but I don't think any of you are perfect either, are you? Think about it. So going back to some of those basics, I usually mention this a lot, is, you know, give yourself room to grow. Determine in your mind that you're not going to do it again. If you catch yourself in one of these situations of communicating ineffectively and using disrespect and not caring anything about the other person, just trying to get your message across. If you find yourself in that situation, just think about it, determine not to do it again, give yourself a little room to grow, you know, don't just give up, give yourself some room to grow, and let's get started again, you know, it's that simple. And try it. Next time you are wanting to get loud about trying to get your message across and force it on someone else, why don't you try the peaceful solution? Why don't you just back up and try that? I dealt with someone recently, is why it's fresh on my mind. I dealt with someone very recently that I was sitting there thinking, man, did I lead this person to do this? I mean, I don't recall raising my voice, not that I haven't, don't get me wrong. I don't recall raising my voice and trying to push my message across to this guy. But he sure was me. But I was willing to try to listen, you know. It didn't really go anywhere, but I was trying. And he just wasn't willing to, you know, he wasn't really willing to talk at that time. So that's okay. Maybe I'll be able to talk to him soon. Okay, so listening is a valuable skill that will only enhance your ability to lead. And of course, reflecting upon what the speaker might be feeling. So then we look at takes initiative. An effective leader takes initiative. A positive leader takes initiative. Taking initiative clearly defines leadership abilities. To take initiative is to take the first step to solving a problem or accomplishing a task. Problem solving could be in the form of an idea or actual physical labor. I know that's kind of a bad word with some people. I mean, not that it would be with anybody sitting here that I'm looking at right now. I know most of you, and I don't think that you're scared of physical labor in any manner. It might also mean encouraging and motivating others to be part of the solution. Now, that's the hard part. If you got somebody that's disrespectful and not even caring about the peaceful solution, or possibly they do care about the peaceful solution, but they're having a rough day and they haven't quite learned how to control themselves, taking initiative to be the peacemaker, encouraging and motivating others to be part of the solution, not the problem. To take initiative, you must be able to assess that there is a problem. Initiative, that first step, trying to solve the problem. You must be able to assess that there's a problem that needs a solution and then be willing to take action. This takes courage and decisiveness. Sometimes people don't want to hear what you have to say. If you see that they have a low tire and you point it out to them, they might look at you and just shrug. And you might be a mechanic and you might know what kind of damage they're doing to your car, but is it worth getting in an argument with the person? It's his car. If you point something out to somebody and they're not willing to take it, well, go on about your business. You tried. Don't get in an argument about it. You can't force your way upon someone else. They have to be able to choose. So you present your case in a respectful form, a respectful manner, with the right tone of voice, being an effective leader, a communicator, and a listener, and then you let it take its course. All right, so this takes courage and decisiveness, and you must also be willing to seek permission from the appropriate authority before following through on your plan. So you wouldn't just walk up there and start airing up the guy's tire without asking. It's not your property. You would want to ask permission. And that goes, every step of the way. I'm giving you a pretty simple scenario there, but anyway, for example, you see that bullying is a problem in your school and you want to promote respect and tolerance. The reason I'm kind of laughing about this is that some people will try to support and promote respect and tolerance by actually being disrespectful. Now, what are you teaching if you do that? It doesn't work. For example, you see that bullying is a problem in your school, place of business, whatever, and you want to promote respect and tolerance as well as form a support group for people who are being bullied. Great idea. Taking the initiative would mean getting permission and guidance from your principal or guidance counselor or authority on how to promote tolerance and form a support group. To take initiative requires positive character traits. And even though you would be taking that initiative and doing a great thing and you're working on positive character traits, you're going to make some mistakes along the way too. That curveball is going to come your way and you're going to mess up and you're going to scream at somebody or, throw a little fit or whatever, But, you can always apologize. That would be the place to start. If you found yourself in any of these situations we've been talking about, place to start would be to apologize to the person that you had a problem with and that you kind of found that you let loose on. You apologize and then go from there. Maybe the person doesn't want your apology. Okay, well, that's up to them. Again, you can't force it on them. There'd be no need to start yelling at them and telling them why they need to forgive you and accept your apology. It won't work. You'd just be lining up to apologize to them again. That's all. All right. And so a little activity there. It says use the lines below to list some of the positive traits that are required for a leader. This is on page 161. And if you filled it out properly, you would probably put responsible, courageous, self-controlled, determined, optimistic, and decisive, amongst many other things that you could put on those lines, okay? All right, turning on over to page 162. We're still in that one section that procedure number 5 covers. And remember, we've already done pretty much procedure number 6 by doing the little activity on the facial features and the so forth. But procedure number 5 continues on and takes us all the way through to page 163 on the effective the skills of leadership, and okay. So going on over to page 162. A positive leader is able to mediate or find middle ground in conflict situations. So willing to use the peaceful solution and everything that goes with it to show respect to the other person, care, and concern. A conflict is a problem between two or more people that arises because they misunderstand or disagree with each other. No matter how much you think your way is right, and even if your way is right, trying to force it on somebody else is not going to work, okay? A positive leader is one who can intervene in such situations to help find a peaceful resolution. By doing so, the conflict will not become violent or aggressive. And you know what I've seen in a lot of cases is when someone is trying to force their way, it's really because they're not at all interested in what's right or wrong. They just want their way. Mediation requires several different skills, the first being that you must be willing to take the initiative to help others agree on a peaceful solution. You must also be able, and get that, you see, to be a leader, you take the initiative to help others agree on a peaceful solution. You don't take the initiative to argue. You don't take the initiative to throw something at somebody. You don't take the initiative to throw the first punch. You know? You've also got to be able to actively and objectively listen to all sides of a situation, all sides of the situation, and offer suggestions that are fair and impartial. This requires patience and self-control. Basic peaceful solution. When mediating, it is up to you as a positive leader. Now, you can still be a leader. You might not be positive if you're not doing it this way, though. It's up to you as a positive leader to remain calm and not take sides. Your role is to make sure that those who are having the conflict respect each other both verbally and physically and find peaceful ways to solve their differences. So if you've been involved in any situations where people were not speaking with each other with respect and not using verbal and not or being disrespectful verbally or even physically, and don't get it wrong, just because you're not hitting somebody for screaming at somebody, you're doing the same thing. It's abuse. Verbal and physical abuse to get your way. Anyway, and so you as the leader, as the positive leader, as the communicator, as the active listener, as the person showing respect and, you're showing true care and concern and empathy towards the other person, you're the one who will take the initiative to find peaceful ways to solve differences. And you'll help others to learn that too. Those that are arguing and raising their voice and everything, it's possible that you might be able to help them understand what's taking place and you be a mediator in the situation. Of course, they might quickly tell you to shut up, that you're not invited into the situation. And if so, they've made their choice. A positive leader must be able to rank things in order of importance. Remember, you can't force yourself. You can't force them to listen to you while you're trying to mediate the situation. It doesn't work. A positive leader must be able to rank things in order of importance, and this skill requires thinking about what needs to be done and doing what is most necessary first. For example, you were elected class president, you were put in a supervisory position, you were, name it. You come up with a lot of things. You're the older sibling. You got married and you have a wife. And anyway, so you were elected class president. And the three top issues to deal with were, okay? In this case, the example is about the class president. Students want more field trips during the school year. Well, I can appreciate that. I know some students that would like to have more field trips during the year, too. So I can surely appreciate that. Students want better desserts with lunch. Well, I don't think just students. I think teachers want better desserts with lunch, too. I think everybody would really like it if they had their choice of desserts during lunch, don't you? Okay. I got a yes over here. Students want a school where there is no violence. There you go. That should be basic stuff right there. Not necessarily the dessert and the field trips and everything, but students want a school where there's no violence. So how would you prioritize these issues in order of importance? Now, if you're a student and you're wanting those field trips, you might put that at the top, but here's really kind of how it should go. And I can't force you to consider this, but you might just consider that the top one might be students want a school where there is no violence. That should be our top thing in prioritizing those three things, is students want a school and need a school where there's no violence, okay? That's number one. Now, the other ones are just merely wants, and might be you need to have a better dessert or whatever, but they're just wants, really, and they're things that you can incorporate into that every now and then, but none of those are have-tos, A and B. C is a have-to. You really have to have that to have peace. Whether you get more desserts doesn't have much bearing on unless, of course, there's a bunch of people rioting because they didn't get their dessert, but then that's them, and they're making wrong decisions, and whoever started it is not a positive leader, and so forth. But students want a school where there is no violence, number one, and the others fall in place, okay? So there it says that, of course, C should be prioritized, ranked as the most important issue to be considered, and a safe school will be of greater benefit to the students than desserts or field trips. I assure you. Everybody hear that, guys, you young guys back there? All right, knows and up here. So knows how to delegate. A positive leader is able to delegate or assign tasks and duties to others. Delegation requires both foresight and insight to choose those who can successfully fulfill their duties and complete the tasks assigned to them. Insight is the ability to see the heart of the matter, the intent, what's really taking place, to determine, to decipher, to look at it and figure it out, using the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program in doing so. Okay. Insight is the ability to see the heart of the matter. In other words, you are able to look past extraneous or irrelevant information, kind of like the field trips and the desserts in the previous example, and focus on what's really important. Foresight is the ability to anticipate the outcome of a situation based on present facts. Now, don't get me wrong, if a person really is having a mental breakdown because they didn't get the dessert they wanted with their lunch, okay, that you can deal with that situation. You can talk to that person. You can explain the benefits of, the things that you need or the things that you want, and the difference between those two, and the benefits of the peaceful solution, and how along the way, if they play their cards right, so to speak, they might get the dessert that they desire with their lunch. But it's not going to be through force and throwing a fit and rioting and yelling at the teacher or any of the other students to get your way. For example, you've been asked to direct the school play. It's your job to assign roles. You notice that some of your peers auditioned for one part, but would be better suited for others. This required insight. You realize that if you give them the parts that they auditioned for, the play will not be as successful. This also applies in business. You hire 20 people and you have 20 different jobs, and you assign the jobs, and the people are satisfied and they like the job you gave them. And along the way, a month later, you realize, hey, this person is not that suited for that job. I see the man over here operating this machine or doing this job would be much better suited to this over here. And so you do a shuffle around without yelling at everybody and making them feel bad and all that. You shuffle them around to put them in a position where it would be better for them, less stressful for them. Stress is caused by kind of being overwhelmed by things. And you might find that you do another job much better and not stressed out. And so that person with insight that can look at all that and then guide it along the way can make it work better for everybody's advantage. Okay, so these things require foresight, and because you're a positive, effective leader, you take the initiative and assign roles and other duties based on what each person is best suited for rather than what they auditioned for. You know that in the end, your decision will help to produce a more successful play, place of work, etc. An effective leader is able to use both insight and foresight to encourage and motivate people with the appropriate skills to successfully accomplish a task. This encourages teamwork, unity, and cohesiveness. Teamwork, unity, and cohesiveness. Teamwork, unity, and cohesiveness. I don't think you'll ever have unity as long as people are trying to force their way, whether you're the owner of the company, whether you're the supervisor, whether you're the teacher, whether you're the older sibling, or whatever it is. You're not going to have unity by force and by bullying and only trying to get your way. You must do everything that we just learned right here in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and finish off today here on page 163. And we're leaving off right there in the middle of the page where it says in summary. So the next teacher will cover summarizing this and probably go over a few of the things that we've talked about and then lead into the next pages. And we look forward to that. We look forward to having everybody here that's in person and everybody here that's online also. Please join us again. Thank you. Oh, again.